Hi guys, so back to the K100 build. As you saw in the last video, I managed to get the bike running, which was quite an achievement after all the things that I kind of did to get it running. It turned out that I think the problem, not the overall problem, so the pump still needed replacing in the fuel tank, but one of the main issues was the fact that the fuel that was in the tank was still dirty. So the actual fix to get it idling okay, obviously there was a lot of smoke and things like that, but the fix to get the bike idling like that was to change the fuel. So I siphoned out the fuel, went to the petrol station, got some brand new fuel from the pump, came back, put however many gallons it was in there, started it up, and it sat and it idled no problem at all. So I think I kind of gave myself a few problems where I hadn't used the right fuel, or I hadn't used new fuel, and the fuel that had been sitting in there was no good. So just to kind of update on that. So where are we at with, so we've moved on a little bit. We've taken a few different things off, and I'm just going to show you the problem that the bike had. And it may be that you've got a similar bike or the same bike, and you've got a drive issue, and it may be that you can sort of find the problem or where the problem may be. So what was happening was every time you would put off the bike was off the floor. Every time you put it into first gear and you try to run that back wheel, it would make this awful grinding sound. So the grinding sound would come from a certain part of the bike. So it was kind of, again, no idea what I was doing really, but I understood that we've got to sort of take it all back to try and find where the problem was. So that's what I did. So first thing I did was take the rear wheel off. Once I had the rear wheel off, we managed to get the brake caliper off. And then from that point there, we had the swing arm. So a swing arm actually came off. So it was just this L-shaped unit here. A few issues with that coming off. So on the side of the bike, running through here, holding it on the frame or onto the bike itself was this studded. This stud here, held in by three bolts. But when we tried to take the bolts out and we tried to remove it, where it had obviously had some sort of stress inside this swing arm here, it had broken part of the drive shaft. So I'll show you that now. And basically all of the metal particles or metal pieces, they got stuck and they were causing that stud to not come out. So one side was no problem at all. The other side we had to basically pry it out. So a screwdriver on either side, and there's probably a tool for this, but I didn't have it. So I pried this part out, and it came out. And then once that was out, the swing arm just pretty much fell away. I had to move the clutch cable out the way, but then once I got that swing arm out the way, this is kind of what I was left with. So it still isn't a pretty sight, but this is basically what I was left with. So in this position here, and this is where that pivot stud was going through. So before I did that, I took off the rear diff on the end where the wheel was, and that's kind of what's been left here. So the rear diff came off, and you can see that it's a spline here. So if you imagine that on the back of the bike, from here you've got the swing arm, then the swing arm comes all the way back into what I've just showed you, where the rear disc is with the diff on it, and then that goes, the wheel goes onto that there. So we took the wheel off, took the rear differential off, and then we took the swing arm off. Now basically the part that broke, and I'll show you that in a minute, was the connection. So a shaft, a splined shaft, connection from the rear differential to the gearbox. So it goes, I'll try and put a diagram up here. So it goes differential into the swing arm, into the gearbox. And in that part there, there's a shaft. And this is the shaft. So this is the shaft that goes between the two. So if you imagine it's that way in the bike, I'll actually show you. So this part here goes up into the bike. This part here goes into the rear differential. When there's a knuckle joint that's normally on here, when that spins around, this whole thing spins. It spins this side here onto a gear within that differential, and that's what spins the wheel. So what had happened was the bit going into the bike, into the gearbox, had snapped, and I'll show you that what that looks like now. So this part here, so basically that would normally look like this, and I'll show you that when the new part arrives. And what's happened is that snapped off. So it might be the other way around. No. So this here has basically snapped off the way. But what happened was that was still sitting on that spline within the bike, and then obviously this was left. So every time it was running, this part here was trying to spin, and this part here this part here was spinning, and this part here was staying where it was, which wasn't driving this part here, which was the back wheel. So this is all things that I've learned, all things that I've just kind of figured out myself, and it was just causing a real issue. So let me show you some of the metal shavings that was left inside the bike, where it had just ground away until the bike wouldn't move anymore. So I've basically ordered this shaft now. So I've ordered this drive shaft to replace, and then that was the original problem with the bike. So we've obviously encountered quite a few different problems throughout when we started taking things or looking at things, but that was the main issue, is that the bike wouldn't drive or run forward because of that issue. So I didn't know that was going to be the issue. So when I bought the bike, I knew roughly what it could be. I've been looking at forums, and it said that it could be that shaft there, which is quite a cheap, relatively easy fix, or it could be a broken spline within the bike, which is a bit more expensive. So I'm hoping that this to replace this is going to be reasonably cheap to do. The other thing that happened while we was trying to get this part off of the bike was it kind of bent, and it kind of damaged the swing arm, so the bearing on the swing arm. So each end of this swing arm here has got this bearing in. So what happens is this is what holds it to the frame of the bike, or onto the bike, in here. So that would go in there, we'd tighten this up, and then the swing arm would be in place, and then there's a bearing the other side. What's happened is the bearing itself has kind of been twisted or been turned, and where it's been turned, I think it's bent something inside there, or sort of basically broken that bearing. So the bearing itself isn't held together, which obviously is a bit of an issue. I looked online to try and find just the bearing, to try and sweat it out of there, and I think it was £40, but I've just put a bid, or offered someone, it was £25 to replace this whole part, which included the bearings, which included these bearings in here. And I've just had it accepted, so I decided to buy this whole swing arm and replace the whole thing, which I think is another little tip, I guess. when you go on eBay and you're looking at things like that, just offer a price for something, and 9 times out of 10 they've had that part on the shelf for a while and they'll want to sell it. So as I said, it was £40 for the bearing, or managed to get this whole swing arm for £25. So that's the next thing that's going to be replaced. So just waiting on the delivery of those 2 parts. Once those 2 parts come, which is the drive shaft and the swing arm, I'm hoping that we can replace them. So we'll put them back onto the bike, and then once we've got them on the bike, in theory, we should be able to ride it. I've actually taken off the brake light and then the indicator lights, because the wiring was just awful. So I've stripped it back a little bit, and that needs to be rewired. What I'm looking at now is the exhaust. So I've just taken all of these heat strap things off of the exhaust, and the actual exhaust looks really nice. It actually looks like quite a nice exhaust. The issue is this muffler thing in here. So I'm going to have a quick look at that now and see if I can get that out, and see if I can potentially change the inside of that on its own, and see if that's a part on its own. We'll go from there. The next few jobs is going to be to redo the wiring. There's still an issue with the indicator making a funny noise in the relay, and then we're just going to try and restore the rear disc. So at the moment it's actually come up quite nice. I've got some rust stuff coming today. It may be that I contemplate spraying it, which obviously isn't an ideal thing, but it might make it look a little bit better. So I'm going to have a look at this exhaust now, and I'll speak to you guys in a minute. Hi guys, so it's another day. So I've finally got the centre stand off. So the centre stand has come off, and basically it's seen better days. I've checked to see if there's any switches. So sometimes with the kickstand down, obviously the bike won't start. There's no switches down there that are being made. So I've removed the centre stand, and what I've done is I've basically left the side stand on the bracket that sits underneath the bike. So this bracket here sits with the side stand, which then goes underneath the bike, somewhere under there. So that's another job ticked off. I bought some rust remover on Amazon, and I think that the rear disc has come up quite well. I would say it's come up quite well. Couldn't find like for like that's reasonably priced on eBay or something like that. So the plan is to reuse that. With the view to put the rear wheel back on, disc brake back on as well. And then 2 deliveries I was waiting for. First one was the drive shaft, and the second one was the swing arm. The drive shaft is now here, so this is the new drive shaft. You can see that the knuckle joint here is intact, which is what was broken on the last one, which I'll show you. It was this one here, so you can see that the joint is snapped off, and then we're just waiting on the swing arm. So this is the bearing that had kind of shattered when it had taken a hit. So yeah, so we're kind of cracking on with those little jobs now. Just noticed that the drive shaft, which is this end here, goes into the gearbox spline shaft, or the gearbox shaft, and there's quite a bit of metal shavings that are in there. So we're going to have to give that a really good clean once we put it back together, but there's no point starting on that until I've got that swing arm. So the plan for right now is to, we've got the side stand ready to go. We've also got a new, I think it's an engine crane thing, to be able to lift up the bike more. So with the view that we can have it a bit more stable, because the bike fell on me yesterday or the day before yesterday. So it gives us gives me a bit more security, so that when I'm working on it on my own, it doesn't fall and crush me. Next jobs really is going to be to start to put the rear end of the bike back together. So we're still without a rear brake light, still without an rear indicators. The front indicators still beep, so we're still trying to get that going. So that's again another job to build it up, to run it, to make sure that it runs. The other little jobs that we've got is grips. So I've ordered some new grips. And then finally, the main one I think that would probably fail on a MOT is the exhaust. So the exhaust muffler. Let me show you that now. So basically, what it looks like at the moment, and the exhaust system here. So I've undone the clamps that hold this. Are supposed to hold this exhaust on, but I think there's some rust that's set in, of course, and I can't get the exhaust off. So I'm going to continue to try and do that. Lifting it off the floor a bit more might help. Jobs to do, but I'll end that short video there, and then I'll show you next steps as I start to put the